Yo voy a cantar esta canción para mi gente, con una pasión tan fuerte.
Good Thursday evening, everyone. This is it was coming. We've talked about it a little bit. I was going to do a series on church hurt. Two words that absolutely should not even go together. Um, but I scrolled back and I even looked at my Facebook posts that I made about it and was reading, some of the text and everything that it came through from that, and trying to see what just refresh my brain because it was all so sudden that day, and I said, well, yeah, I should do a whole series on church hurt because it seemed like a lot of people could identify with where I was coming from with the post that I made, and just looking back at it now, it is, and it's sad. I had saw it's just been taken down now, but it was like just a caption someone had made about what made you leave the church, and I was like, well, because people are rude and have ugly hearts with no remorse for hurting other people. Um, that's why, really, and it's sad. I mean, we're all supposed to be there for the same reason. I'll never comprehend in my life being rude and mean to anyone, much less someone that's supposed to be in a place of gathering of like-minded believers that are in the building for the exact same reason. I mean, it should be full of love. You think about church, it's fellowship, it's love, it's a house of worship. Everybody's supposed to be there for the same reason. Sadly, even from personal experience, it doesn't always work out that way. People there, you would think it's all, rainbows and unicorns, as my daughter likes to say too. Butterflies, rainbows, and unicorns, and people are there to encourage you, and that's where you go for support. That's where you go to find other people who are, we're hurting. Everybody's going through something. Everybody in life is going through something. Then nobody's life is just skating by 100% on happiness and no problems at all. I mean, we all face stuff. It's but when you get in there and it's you end up coming across people with ugly hearts, ugly attitudes, and I know it's humans. We'll get into all that, but it all it's kind of come about the last church that my family and I attended, and I will say I'm not here to try to tear down anybody. I'm not going to tell nobody to not go to church. I will encourage you to go to church. Um, I think faith is very important, really, really important. I'm not preaching and telling people that know me know I have friends from every walks of life, atheist, agnostic, homosexual, just just every kind of walk of life you can imagine. I know somebody that, and I'm friends with people from, and they can all tell you the same thing about me. There's no, it's not my place to tell you what you're doing wrong. If you want encouragement, if you need a friend, I'm here. I'm not here to, I have my own sin. Why am I going to beat you over the head about yours? Anyway, um, the last church we attended, it was just, it had been a long time. Amy and I have been married 9 years, have two kids, and being raised in Lower Alabama, here in the deep South, there is a lot of tradition, a lot of. It's really hard to make people that are not from here understand that the way things are down here, as opposed to other parts of the country, other parts of the world, as in a whole. But in the South, there's it goes back from people think snake handlers and this and that, and the speaking in tongues and running. Women don't cut their hair and they wear skirts, and that's it. And that's the only way you can go to heaven. Anyway, uh, but a lot of things over the years, of course, like with anything else, it's kind of modernized out. to an extent. I mean, there's still a lot of, I think a lot of my generation and even generation, um, I don't know. I mean, the ones coming up are a little different, but my generation, there's that's the one I've run into a lot where people have left the church, and it seems it always boils down to being hurt. And you analyze yourself, and there's people that drop the cliches of, oh, man, people are going to hurt you everywhere. They people, the disciples argued with one another. And Jesus had to break them up. Blah, 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 blah. People are all about the sure. If you're that person that you can, you don't that's great. If you've never had to go through it, um, like I said, I don't I feel like some of us that have been through it, that it's for a reason. Maybe in the scheme of things, the big picture, this last go around with my wife and I was very, very, very disappointing, very hurtful. Like I said, I'm not naming names and pointing any fingers. We had started going there with some friends. Um, it just, it had been a long time. Like I said, we've been married over 9 years, and we really needed a church. My wife, found out she was pregnant again, and we had, just come through a hard time in life, and we needed, we were like, we need to pull the trigger. And these friends of ours had been kind of persistent about inviting us to their church, and I was like, man, I don't know. I kind of know somebody in every denomination. I was born and raised in Pentecostal denomination, but my wife, she went to a Christian school. I didn't, which being raised in church, I mean, whatever. But she wasn't raised in church like I was. I mean, she went as a kid and stuff, but from the time I was born, we were made to go to church, and we were there. There was no two ways about it. Every time the doors was open, whatever was going on, we were going to be at church. Uh, and I feel like a lot of that too is, with the traditions and stuff in the South. Um, there's no, you can point out things in the Bible where it talks about different things with the Sabbath and this and that, on and on and on. But it's not like, oh, Wednesday night we have the midweek service, and then Sunday morning and Sunday night, and then Tuesday night prayer meeting, and then this and that. I get it, but it's you want to be around, you want to be there and involved and things like that, which is great. Like I said, I will never tell nobody not to go to church. And if you go to a good church at the end of all this, and hey, and it's in the area I live in, I'd be glad to come visit. I say the area I live in because I'm pretty, eh, I don't know. It's I'm still I'm kind of hung up on the whole church and community thing, if that makes sense. I believe you should kind of stay within your community, I guess. I don't want to drive an hour across to another town to go to a church. I mean, that's when you're building relationships, it doesn't really seem to manifest anything. I mean, you live so far apart, and it's like, if you're seeing the same people on Sunday that you see in the grocery stores, and that your kids go to school with their kids, and it kind of builds a little bit, more sense of, that's just me. Like I said, that could be totally wrong. I know people that drive from Satsuma, which that means nothing to you that might be listening, but there's people that make a almost 45-minute drive across town, here where I live, that they think nothing about, and they've been doing it for years to go to church. But again, personal preference. But this last go around, um, it kind of starting out with that. This is going to be just a little series. I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 episodes. Kind of give you my background and everything, but I have to, like I said, I have to keep saying I don't think that I'm not trying to keep anybody from going to church. I'll say it one last time. Anyway, we were going to this church. Everything was great. My daughter loved it. Um, I went in with the mindset of not getting involved in anything, just being there. And no, I've been through enough hurt. I want to be nobody's friend. I want to go hear the message, and have my family there, worship, go home. That's I want my daughter there. My son's on the way. I want us to have a home church. That was the extent of it. Um, you know, the friends that we had were, yeah, I've known the guy. I've known him over 20 years. His wife, I haven't really known her that long. But let's not get into a personal thing. But me and her have never really clicked, to say the least. But anyway, my wife, they're loving on her, and people are being nice, and there's a lot of great people in that church. I liked it. I enjoyed the pastor. Um, and they had kind of, they have a children's ministry. And in the morning time, Sunday mornings, kids come in the door. Okay, well, they come in the door, they have a little check-in station. Okay, well, they're going to get the parents to sign them in. They're going to get a little sticker in case something happens or you come back to pick your kid up. You got the ticket. This is my kid. There he goes, match it up. Boom. Safety, security, wonderful, absolutely wonderful. That's one thing that I really think is important in today's world, especially. So they had convinced my wife to volunteer to work on Sunday mornings helping out with that, with the little check-in process. And they had they split it up in like A, B, and C group. And this week, you didn't do it every Sunday. They split it up. And yeah, my wife's was like the second, third Sunday of the month or something. So I'd gotten sick. My daughter had gotten sick. But my wife was, we had been there a few months and she was like, I'm gonna be there. I volunteered, I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna get up. This was on that Saturday night. She's like, I'm gonna get up and go. I'm like, that's okay, cool, And she came home and it was earlier than what church would have been over with. And she's all upset. I'm like, what's wrong? And a lady that went to the church, young lady, she's married, but she's probably a young 20-something-year-old couple, new mom, brings her kid up there, and my wife said they didn't have some of the badges that were supposed to go, to hand out to the people, the little, tags or whatever for the kids to, so, come pick your kid back up, whatever. Um, and the girl came up and was, my wife was like, hey, I don't have the little badges, little things right now to sign them in. And the girl was like, well, don't you think you need to find them? And it's like really, just really like, wow. Why would you're not at the airport waiting on your plane ticket. You're not at Walmart or Target waiting on the manager. You're not in a restaurant sending your food back. You're at church. This this lady is here, volunteered her time. This isn't life or death. This isn't, you're not her boss. This is not her job. She is volunteering. And so my wife tells me all this. And then she informs me it's not the first time it's happened with her. I said, okay, I'm already on the edge. I'm ready, of course, to go talk to the husband like a man. And hey, man, you need to put your wife in check big time. Uncalled for, whatever. And of course, the friends of ours, they're like, who was it? Who was it? My wife didn't even want us to know. She said, I don't want to go back. My wife was like, I don't want to go back. We'd already been having some issues with the friends. We're no longer friends. But because of the attitude that she had, the friend had, that treating us like we were these little baby Christians that she was just coddling and walking through step by step to teach us how to go to church. And I'm like, babe, I'm older than you. I've been in church my whole life. I know how this goes. Anyway, silly petty stuff with them. Regardless, it was just a buildup of emotions between that and then what happened. So from there, my wife, I don't want to go back. So I don't. That's fine with me. We shut the whole thing down right now. We just won't go back. I don't. The friendship, all of it, scratch it, done. I don't care. I'm done. I done been through this too many times. So that in thinking, well, I was kind of optimistic. Like maybe somebody from the church will reach out. Maybe we'll hear from somebody. Maybe the pastor will intervene. Maybe some of the people that we had met, we've been there like 6 or 7 months. Maybe surely somebody's going. We weren't looking for that. I didn't care because I was just like, whatever. I don't go back. I don't go back. I don't owe them nothing. Uh, I'm not gonna sit there and be in a situation where it's awkward and have, this tension and all this with this girl, and have to get into this big sit down meeting with the pastor and lets everybody work it out and blah blah blah. No, I don't have to be here. I don't work here. I'm here by choice. I just don't have to be here. Simple as that. This is y'all's church. I've been here a while. We're new. 6, 7 months in, we'll silently step out. Y'all can have it. Bye. And of course, the friends were like, "Oh, you can't just do that. You need to tell us who it was. You need to tell us who it was." And I'm like, no, no, and it blew up from there. Needless to say, the real kicker. About a week later, the pastor of the church makes a Facebook post about, "Oh, you can go up to McDonald's a million times and they mess your order up. You still go back. Somebody hurts your feelings one time at church and you never come back. So you never called and tried to intervene or ask what was going on. You just immediately took this side of, well, they no longer go here. What happened?" And they tell them, "Oh, well, they're not coming back either." Oh, so let me go make a Facebook post, and it's like, really? I mean, you're the pastor of the church, right? That does not even, I mean, that's how you handle business? Come on, man. Come on. That's not cool. Not at all. Um, so that's where we're at today. I mean, we stopped going there June or July last year, 2023. So we haven't been back to a church since then. We've just been. Amy was pregnant, with our son. Had a rough pregnancy through the summer. Um, the emergency cesarean to get him here, and everything has just been. We've been tired. I mean, you can make excuses all day long, right? Um, but no, like I said, that's just the most recent. That's got us to where we're at now. Could have handled it a different, or could I have been like, no, let's everybody get together and sit down. If I have not been through what I have been through, which is what I'm going to get into, and you'll understand. That's why I told this story first, because you're probably sitting there thinking, well, that's silly. A silly reason not to go back to a church because somebody was rude to your wife. Why not just ignore them? Why not just let it go? Who is she? Whatever. Be rude back to her. That's where it gets good. I'm 47, 46, whatever. Like I said, been in church my whole life. This is the church hurt thing has been this has been very hard for me. I guess you could say. I don't, because it's been all of my life that I've had to deal with these things. That's what, like I said, what brought me to not even trying with this last go around. And like I said, we had been in church. We really never. I mean, we never really went to church our whole marriage. I know it's bad, but we get there. I'm gonna get you there. You're gonna have the aha moment. So, growing up, I got 3 younger brothers. My parents, they divorced. I was 9, so I guess it was around 1986, 85, somewhere around there. But the church we grew up in and went to, have a lot of family heritage there. It was in the community where we lived. On my mom's side of the family, which like my dad's mom, my grandmother on my dad's side, she had went there, which I was like 2 or 3 when she passed. So I don't really, of course, I don't remember her, but I knew she had went to that church. My dad's sister, my aunt, had went to that church. On my mother's side, my grandparents and every one of my aunts and uncles, there's 6 of them, including my mom, all went to this church. We have a lot of cousins. We all went to the same church. We all went to the same schools together. We all lived within a stone's throw of one another. So it was very much our life. It was very much, we were always around one another. We were always there. It was from church to school to home, church or home to school to church. It was that was life. Like I said, being here in the deep South, there was a lot. It was Pentecostal church, not the there's various names for it, apostolic, holiness, whatever. It wasn't that avenue of what Pentecostal is. This was just more Pentecostal now. It's just a little the beliefs or whatever. They believe in speaking in tongues and all that stuff. And it's not really like nothing crazy. Like people running, shouting, screaming, all that kind of stuff. It's just more of a freedom of an open form of worship. Lifting hands and the songs are you know what some the holiness and the apostolics called contemporary music, contemporary Christian, which I think is crazy. Music's music. There's various forms of music, sure, but just because it's a read back hymnal song played with just a piano does an Amazing Grace. Well, then you got Amazing Grace, but then you got Too Good to Not Believe by Brandon Lake. They're both like Christian music. I don't understand throwing in the contemporary. I mean, they have the same message. What's the difference? Anyway, uh, but yeah, that's like my great grandmother on my mom's side. She lives up in north of where I live, about an hour, and there's some backwoods folks. I mean, they were holiness apostolic. The women they didn't cut their hair, wear makeup, wore skirts. The guys were clean cut. Three-piece suit every Sunday. It was very very strict, very um, hardcore. Very like as far as but it tends to put a lot of emphasis on um, I don't want to say works, but appearance and modesty more than it does reaching the lost. I guess is the best way I could put it. There's it's more of a we got to make sure we're doing this right because the world's not right, and you can't look nothing like the world. You can't be nothing like the world, or you're not going to go to heaven. I don't agree with that. I mean, of course, you want to be separate from the world, but of course, being separate from the world and not looking like the world is. You can go down a lot of avenues of that. That could be taken. I look at that and I think, okay, if I'm not going to be like the world. Well, then I'm not going to be things that are obvious sin, that are sins of this world. Even going to the Ten Commandments, I'm not going to kill nobody. I'm not a murderer, a thief, and this and that, and this and that. I'm not saying because I have a beard, tattoos, and dress the way I dress, which I don't think is wrong with. That doesn't make me of this world. When my heart is, when my faith lies in the same, you believe that Jesus was born of a virgin, died, rose again on third day, sits at the right hand of the Father. That's there's a heaven and a hell, and you should love people, reach people, encourage people, be nice to people. It don't matter what kind of walk of life they're from. It's not your job to tell them they're wrong. It's not your job to tell them, I can't associate with you because you're of this world. That's not how it works. And a lot of, how we were raised, there's a saying that I've, my buddy Trey McCrory, I give him a shout out. He had posted this on Facebook one day. It was a concerning spirituality. There's being trained like a dog or being taught how to have a relationship with God. If they say Father God, and that hit me so hard. And this is not bashing my parents or any of the elders of the church I grew up in. There's some great people. There's some great, like praying people that were legit. And even if they had that mindset of, you know, this is the way things should be, and this is, you should be clean cut, or you should, because there was in the church I grew up in, they weren't as harsh as like my, the apostolic holiness style, but they were still like, yeah, all that hair on your face, boy, you shouldn't have long hair, you shouldn't have this. But they weren't like hardcore about it. The women in the church wore makeup, got the hair done, and on and on and on. It wasn't well, they were not that strict at all. But it was still there was a lot to it of, I joke all the time as well and say it was almost like voodoo. if you don't do this, the Lord will. If you hear a cuss word and you don't repent, then you could go to hell for just hearing that cuss word. And to me, that is that's not how it works. That's not at all how it works. You know, oh my God, you can't watch this on TV. Well, obviously, you should have people should have enough common sense to know what they can look at and what they goes in their brain. People always say trash in, trash out. And that's true. But it's like if you have no kind of relationship with God and you have no kind of that's nowhere in your life, no prayer life, no consideration or faith of any kind, and but you still believe in God and you still believe all that's real, then no, I mean, I get that, but that's not the way it works. We're not being, God is not, or Jesus, I should say, whatever. It doesn't work like that. It's not voodoo. He's not sitting there waiting, wanting to send us to hell for just the slightest little mix up or the slightest little bit of sin in your life or the slightest little mishap of, oh God, yeah, you slipped up and sinned today, now I curse you for 2 months of bad luck. It doesn't work that way. And if people with the phones in the palm of your hand, you have enough uh, common sense to Google anything. One of my favorite preachers, Damon Thompson, said, "Out of any generation, we are doing less with more than any generation has ever had. Doing less with more." And he's talking about we got all the information we want in the palm of our hand. You can Google anything. You can research anything. You got questions. You ain't got to go to somebody. And that's where a lot of it. Like growing up, we were like, "Oh, that's brother so and so, and he gave us a warning." Well, first off, God's not going to give somebody something negative to come tell you you're in danger of dying if you don't pray 3 times tonight before the sun comes up tomorrow. The Lord told me to tell you that. That's not how it works at all. Um, and it's taken me deconstructing my brain from all that junk and learning what a relationship with God is, and through all of this. Um, but I'd never understood, looking back on all of that, and when Trey posted that all of that came crashing down on me. It's like, man, that's the truth, dude. We were trained like dogs, and I'm not saying that towards my parents. I'm not saying that towards in a derogatory way towards anybody to put them down. It's been handed down from generations before them, and it was even stricter back then, even crazier, and on and on and on. And so by the time it gets to us, it's like you're so scared to death of hell, and you're so scared to death of every little thing that it's just, oh my God, and that's not it. The Bible clearly says and talks about living in fear. We're not living in fear. I'm not going to live in fear as far as my relationship and my faith. It's silly. It doesn't. That's not how it works. And I've tried to explain that to people for a long time. Like friends of mine that don't believe, or they have all the. I have questions. I still have questions this day. Why does this happen? Why does that? And like I said, you can research things, find out for yourself. Anyway, but growing up like that in a church like that, and being trained in that way, you get in my generation. I feel like that's what's led a lot of us to not be in the church these days. There's a lot of people from mid late 30s up to early 50s that are just you ask them, you're like, why don't you go to church anymore? Man, why would I go to church? What we've been through, man. And it's like, yeah. And then you start hearing these stories of what people went through. I made that post on Facebook. I'm trying to get back to it now, but I start, reading these things, and people are like, yeah, this is why I don't go to church anymore. This is why I don't go to church anymore. I had a woman come to me and tell me if I would pray harder that maybe nothing would be. Maybe my child would be not. There would be nothing wrong. Well, I think I have to go back to it and read it, but her child was having issues. Maybe my child wouldn't be the way they are if I prayed harder. Man, what the nerve of somebody to come tell you something like that? That's not how it works. God doesn't not going to send somebody to tell you, hey, you need to go tell that person and warn them that if they would pray more, that I wouldn't let their child be ill or or have mental conditions or anything like that. That's such garbage, and I've never been able to understand how anybody could pass that down. And I'm really thinking we're at a point that it's not getting passed down too much anymore, which is great. I think a lot of people like myself have deconstructed themselves, and it's bad to say, "Oh, I deconstructed my faith," and it's not my faith that I deconstructed. It's the junk that I was trained, not told, trained to say this is what's right and this is what's wrong, and that's a reason I'm doing this series and telling my story. Maybe it help. Then I start seeing these stories from other people, and I'm hoping that some of them will be able to come in. This is on my YouTube channel live. It'll be up on all the platforms and the audio for the podcast as well. But that's what's trying to. Here it is. I found it. And read some of these. I'm not going to say any names. I mean, you go back and read my Facebook page, you'll see it. She probably don't care. She put it on Facebook. She said official dropout was when a woman told me that if I had prayed harder, my oldest wouldn't have any mental health issues. And she said, I asked her to repeat herself to make sure I heard her correctly. She did, and added that I was essentially damning my child. And who could tell somebody something like that, man? That is not even, that right there. And people, you start, oh, well, here come the cliches. You can't let people keep you out of church. You can't let something like that run you off. And, you still got people are sick and tired of having to endure things like that. Me at this point in my life, I speak up and say something back. But if it, for it to keep on and keep on, I'll get to that because there's been situations that I'll get to in my story that you're gonna be like, "Whoa, you didn't bite your tongue, man." I know I really didn't. Um, another friend of mine, she's like people that were sweet when around certain people in certain times, and then they act like they don't even know that they know you around other people, which that is very common, I think, with people in general. I will say that. I think you get a group of people together, there's going to be cliques, there's going to be this people over here, but you should never exclude anybody. I feel like in church you should be like trying to find the person that's there that feels like nobody that wants them around or wants them to be. They've probably never been included in much in their life, and they probably want somebody to. They're probably desperate for someone to reach out to them and say, "Man, I'd love to be invited to lunch one Sunday." That might change their whole life. One Sunday for somebody to say, "Hey, dude, want to go eat lunch with us? We're going to the Mexican restaurant," which, by the way, is huge in the South. For all my people in the South, you know that. Go eat Mexican after church on Sundays. But anyway, but yeah, that's just a couple of things. Like I said, that I was reading through, and it's the truth, man. People they're you try to explain the hurt to them. You try to explain, they're like, "Oh man, don't let so and so bother you." I gotta get a drink of water. Uh, Y'all have to excuse me. I don't have a water button. But anyway, yeah, being raised in church like that, like I said, we were all uh, in the same place, the schools together. We were all raised together. We were all my cousins, all my family, always around one another. Um, my mom being divorced, I felt like, and this is like I said, I love my mother. I'm not blaming nothing on her or my father. They were great parents. Um, got great relationships with both of them to this day. But my mom being divorced, I felt like a lot of people looked at us a certain way, and maybe looked at her a certain way. So of course they looked at children a certain way. We didn't have a lot of money. We didn't do without, but we were poor. We had help from time to time with, maybe from people in the church. I can't remember all that as a kid, specifics, but I felt, then I say once I got around to, I guess maybe around my teenage years, it was really you start noticing it because you're getting on the high school age, and we had a pretty big what they call youth group, of teenagers and everything on Wednesday nights, and we all done stuff together and things like that. And I always kind of felt like the outcast, did, and it's really because, like I said, I feel like we were just, I don't know, being from the divorce things back then was so taboo, and it was, I don't know, man. I just don't feel like it. You don't have all the. It was very cliquish too. So I mean, it started on as an early age, and that's natural, sure. School, church, wherever. People. I was telling my wife earlier. I said, I don't. It seems like nowadays people aren't as. I don't know. I mean, Katie is second grade, so I haven't got there yet. But I don't know. In high school, are kids still like, oh, you got on Bobo tennis shoes, or you ain't got on name brand, which I know they wear uniforms and stuff, but I don't know if people rag on each other too much like they did when I was in high school. It was like essential. We didn't have uniforms. You better be, if you didn't have on, which, we had nice things. Once I got to be about 16 and stuff in high school, I was working at Del Champ's grocery store, and we had some, had some nice clothes and stuff. Never went without, like I said. It was just a, kind of that umbrella we were under, I guess, and being that, well, they don't, their parents are divorced. And that's so silly, man, because, my dad remarried, my mom remarried, everybody was in church. My dad's in church, his wife were in church, they were raising foster kids and doing other things. I got a sister and all this stuff, two sisters, adopted and the, half sister. And, you know, um, it's not like my dad was just an abusive alcoholic off somewhere and didn't know him. It ain't like my mom was laid up on drugs somewhere. She worked, and it just still didn't, really uh, pick up on it. With the um, why people would want to act like that. As far as what you have and what you don't have, and I don't know. I just don't. I'll never understand how people can be cruel to other people like that over material things. But that's a whole other rabbit hole to go down. But once I got into like my teenage years there at the church, it was, I always felt from the time I was 16, I say I was when I was 16, I felt like, I had a calling on my life to do something. People's like, you mean like God really just spoke to you and said, hey, you're supposed to be a preacher, or you're supposed to be this, or you're supposed to be that? I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much how it works, man. And I felt like uh, at 16, that was the time that I felt like, being involved in music really started coming about to me. I remember being like 14, 15, and people, the guy that played drums in church, I'd be sitting there like trying to keep time with him, and like, dude, I want to learn how to play drums, but never could quite get in that door because I felt like an outcast, because I felt like, oh, that's the cool kids, and the guy was a little bit older than me that played drums, and they were the cooler guys, and they were like in probably their latter years of high school, and I'm like 14, 15, and they're not gonna do that. They ain't gonna fool with me, whatever. And I got on up in age and like 16, 17, 18, and in that time period, it just felt like I could never, you know, get that opportunity, I guess, at the church I was raised in. So it really, that was the early on hurt of a different kind. Like, you know, But that's what it stemmed from. To me, I felt like it was just because of let's say social status, but it was because of coming from a broken home and things like that. It's like, oh well, I don't stand a chance, do I? I'm not with the cool kids. I'm not out here with the ones that the parents make money and this and that, and they're well off and blah blah blah. And got to be probably early 20s. I had already started playing guitar at that point, and so every time I would ask to do something, they're like, "Oh yeah, we can let you do this." Something like help learn to run the soundboard in the church or something. And I'm like, "Yeah, well, we don't even have a guitar player on midweek service. I can learn the 2 or 3 songs and play them." Well, you prove yourself faithful. Something that I heard till I was ready to puke. Prove yourself faithful. Like, prove myself faithful. I've been in this church literally my entire life. What am I proving? Why am I proving something to you? I'm here. I'm not out doing anything wrong. I never understood that concept. I'm sure if you were Joe Blow off the street and had never been there and nobody knew you, they wanted to see you, earn some trust and things like that's one thing. I've literally been in this building since the day I was born. What is the problem? I didn't get it, man. I didn't understand it at all. It was always an excuse, always a Then I started getting a few tattoos and things like that. This is the early 20s, and people were, oh, them tattoos, and you get up there on that platform, and it might make somebody have a bad thought, and if they're not focusing on the service because they're focused on your tattoos up there on that stage, then it's your fault. And that's between God will hold you accountable for that. I don't believe that. I'm sorry if you're that dumb that you're going to sit there and look at me being on stage playing the guitar in a church, and you can't even focus on the service because you're so worried about me having tattoos that you personally think that there's something wrong with it, and it's just making you not even be able to focus on the service or the songs or nothing. Man, that's on you, man. That's not on me at all. I'm here. What else do you need me to do? You know, um, that's kind of where it's like I said early on where it started, and just like letdown after letdown after letdown. And I would talk to the pastor, and sure, I quit. Not show up for a few weeks and then come back, and there was a lot of changes in the church back then. The guy that was he was originally my children's pastor, then my youth pastor, and then he was the pastor of the church. So we were familiar. We knew each other. So put it mildly. And I actually bought my house that I'm sitting in right now from him. So we know one another. But he's a great guy. One of the hardest working, pastors I ever known. But no hate on him at all. Uh, but I think that there was the influence from other people. One of my family members of mine. They were like, because they had this in their head that God ain't called you to do nothing. No, it don't work like that, son. You don't just no, man. It don't work like that. You got to be, some I don't know, whatever for God to call you to do something. He just don't call anybody. Uh, how do you know that, man? That's between me and God. You don't know what He's told me, and I battled that a lot, and that hurt. When you have when you have family look at you and literally say, "Well, God ain't called you to do nothing." Wow. Okay. That's okay. What do you say to that? But you're young and in a position to where it's just hurt and you can't really do nothing about it. You can't really be like, well, it's the truth, man. It's what do I do? What do I say? It's you're not gonna let me do anything. They're gonna make sure I don't get to do anything. Okay. Well, that was around time that music became really important, and I started getting into really playing music, and church really become a it was on the back burner for sure. Early 20s. I never even tried alcohol till I was 21. I mean, that's how strict it was. I had never even tasted alcohol. I hadn't done anything, until after I was 21 years old. And all of my buddies and stuff had, you know, smoked pot and drank, and everybody is 18, 19 years old, 16, whatever, 17, smoking cigarettes, blah, blah, blah. And I was like scared to death because the way we were raised in church and the things we were trained to believe that, man, I might not even get to go to heaven because I saw you do that. So I surely can't do it. But anyway, that that like I said, up until about early 20s at the church there, that my family, I'll say my family church is what I refer to it as because a lot of I say a lot of them's left now, sadly. But there's a few of my family members still at the church, not many. A couple of uncles, I think, have actually always left it good. I think two of my uncles still go there, and that's it. But anyway, right at about the 45, 50 minute mark, I think I'm gonna try to break this up into three parts. I'll come back next time and pick up from there where we left off. Uh, but I hope, like I said, that everybody that's tuned in, and those that said they wanted to, this had their interest and they wanted to hear it and they wanted to, that I'm hoping that you do understand that I've absolutely never once said do not go to church. I encourage you to have your family. I think faith is very important. There's a big, big difference in Southern traditional religion and the traditions they follow. And, I mean, my God, you go back and look, like I said, they just take up snakes. And eventually, I guess somebody got a clue and was like, they might not mean that literal. That might just be you know, a way of describing your faith. And, yeah, man, no, it does not say nothing about, it said you could, your faith was that right. You know what I'm saying? Sure. You know, faith is a mighty thing. Um, am I fixing to pick up a poisonous snake or drink cyanide or strychnine? That's what it is, strychnine. I've been doing a lot of research on. I wished, I wish I could find a snake handling pastor to have on here as a guest. That would be a dream come true. Just that, not to put them down, not to go crazy on them, not argumentative at all, but just to have that conversation. Because I've done a lot of research, a lot of time spent, uh, going down that road, seeing where it traced from, and it traced from like the holiness and apostolic movements and Pentecostal, that old Pentecostal and stuff, Um, but that's where all that stuff derived from. Where where we can, they took everything so literal, so out of context, and so out of, just totally out of context. That's the only way I really could say it. Because I mean, it's so, your faith is not going to be, your salvation is not limited to modesty and having a beard or long hair, or the way, sure, you want to dress appropriately. I mean, you don't want to, of course, like I said, people, my thing is, I keep saying, people you have common sense. You have common sense. You know right from wrong. We all know right from wrong. Whether or not you want to act on it or whether or not you want to, yeah, I mean, that's you, but I mean, you absolutely know. You're like, if I'm not going to sit here and, I'm not watching The Exorcist. I'm just not. Why would I? If you love horror movies and that's your thing, and it don't keep you awake at night, but hey, rave on, boo boo. I'm not watching The Exorcist, not because I'm scared of it. I just feel like that opening, that I do believe biblically that you can allow stuff into your home. You can allow, and I've seen, like I said, I'm gonna go down all those roads, but I've seen some things. I've very much saw some things, and that there's no way that I could not believe. So no, I'm not going to watch something like that. Am I going to sit here and tell you you're going to hell because you watched The Exorcist? Absolutely not. I'm not. I'm not going to. Michael Myers is looking over my shoulder at all time. Why do I like Michael Myers? People ask me that all the time. I don't know. Um, I love the old horror movie stuff, like Frankenstein and Dracula and Mummy and where yeah, Wolfman. Oh man, Wolfman, all that stuff, man. That's I love all that stuff. Um, but I don't know what it is with Michael Myers. I think it's more of a sarcastic light. I think it's not because he's killing people. I think it's his story and everything he went through and all the who he is. And I think it's honestly like the facial expression on that mask and the just you know what I'm saying? It's just like a I don't know. I can't explain it. It's not an obsession with killing nobody or being nothing like that. But that's my deal with Michael Myers. But anyway, that's a whole other. But yeah. Um, but yeah, like I said, I'm looking back through some of these comments and stuff, and people saying, talking about how long they've been out of church and all of the things that have happened to them in church and stuff like that. I'm gonna get back into it. And may have some guests to go down. Anybody that might. Well, hey, look, I'll make this an open invitation. If you want to, I got you can call in. I can bring you in studio right here with me. Um, However you want to do it. If you want to come on and talk on one of the next episodes, hit me up. Absolutely, would love it. Make for great. Like I said, it builds. I think what those iron sharpens iron, but I feel like when you can relate to somebody and you can see what they've been through, uh, maybe something I've been through can help you. Maybe something you've been through can help me because I'm still fighting that battle. Um, I do love every one of y'all that support me and support my podcast and my YouTube channel. It's getting there. A lot of research I've done is like, well, you got to get at least 100 episodes in before you start to see any kind of progress in your followers and this and that. I know not everybody has time to sit down, but I know a lot of people that do listen to podcasts. So I'm hoping that you're checking me out, and they're going to start. Like I said, doing things like this. I've having a new baby and all. I've been kind of not as dedicated as I need to be with this. I need to get more content out there. I need to be more persistent with it. I really do because I have a lot of people lined up. I have a lot of different ideas. Uh, I've had people hit me up and be like, "Man, you ought to do an episode on this and that," and I appreciate that. Like my friend Brandy, she had reached out to me and she was like, "Oh, dude, I've another friend of mine. She's a therapist, Jessica. Have her on soon. She's all for it. Things like that. Talking to different people from different walks of life and things. And great, wonderful. You know, but yeah, we'll pick back up. Like I said, this will be part one. It's kind of where I'm at. Just letting you guys fill that out, and I'll be next time. We'll pick back up in the early 20s of this young Jeremy. I appreciate you guys. Y'all be good to yourselves and tell somebody you love them. It's always important. And we'll see you next time.